Calculated fields are nice because it gives you the capability to roll or to take information from the parent field or the parent record and use it in a calculation on a child record. But what happens if you want to take information from child records and you want to use it on a parent record? So for example, maybe on the account record, I want to have a field that shows me the total open estimated revenue for all the opportunities that I currently have active with that particular customer. That has to actually be done through what's called a roll-up field. And by using a roll-up field, now I have the capabilities to go in and kind of spin that information up. And that's kind of what you're seeing here if you look at this slide. So in this case, I have the entity that I want to work with, which is the account entity. I'm specifying that the related entity that I want to kind of spin the information up from is going to be the opportunities. But then I also have the capabilities to kind of filter down what specific information I want to use. So in this case, I only want to include opportunities that have a status reason of in progress, and then I basically want to sum that estimated revenue. And so there's a few different options available to you. Part of this is based upon the different type of field that you're working with, but you'll see that you have sum, count, min, max, as well as average, and that's going to vary based upon, if it's a date field, so on and so forth, primarily working with kind of numeric values from an application perspective. And so let's just show you a little bit on how roll-up fields work. So again, I'm going to just go back into the application here real quick, and we'll do this, instead of doing this on the registration entity, this time we're going to do it on the event entity, because ultimately what I want to do is, remember, we created kind of that fee collected or balance collected fee. And so what I want to do is I want to just get a kind of a summary of all of the total fees that have been collected for all registrations that are associated with a specific event. And so I'm going to do that by creating a roll-up field on the event entity. So I'm going to, on the event entity, go to Fields and click on New. I'm going to call this fees, or total fees collected. I'm going to change the data type to currency. And then I'm going to come down here where it says field type, and just like I did on the previous one, I'm going to change the field type to, in this case, roll-up, and then I'm going to hit edit. Now it's going to do the exact same thing that we ran into when we were doing the calculated field. And now one of the things that you'll notice is when you go down to that field type, roll-up is only going to be available if it is a supported field type. If I hit data type of like single line of text and I went down to that field type, it's only going to show calculated because roll-ups aren't a supported option for single line of text. So you only see roll-ups if the field type or the data type that you're working with supports rolling up the data information that you're working with. And so now it's going to give you kind of what is the item that you want to work with. So in this case, I basically have the source of entity. Now it asks me if I want to use hierarchy information. So this would be, and we haven't talked a lot about hierarchies yet, but we will in another module. This would be if I would have like child events, or if I had hierarchical information where I had kind of sub-events that I also wanted to include within this. So maybe I had kind of a parent event that was being done, and maybe because of over-enrollment or a lot of people, maybe I had to break that down into two separate events, and I wanted to basically use those two separate events as sub-events. I could include kind of the total registration fees for those items. In this case, I don't necessarily need to worry about that because I don't have that unique need. So the entity that I want to work with is the event registration. So I'm going to go down to registrations, and I'll find registrations event, and I'll choose that. Then I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. Then it's going to ask me if I want any filters. Now in this case, I probably do want some types of filters if it's going to be active registrations or open registrations. Somebody may cancel their registration, and if that's the case, I wouldn't necessarily want to include that in my scenario. So in here, I'm going to use this add condition to basically specify what specific item I want to work with. And so in this case, I'm just going to go down to status reason. I'm going to choose equals, and then my option here is active. And so this means that it's an active registration, somebody who is specifically planning on attending this particular event. And so then I'll go ahead and click on OK. And then what is the aggregation that I want to do? So I'll add my aggregation function. In this case, it's going to be the sum of the registration fee collected. So that's the only real option that I have here. You'll notice that calculated fields can't be used. They have to be straight kind of fields that you want to work with. In this case, it's going to be a registration of the fee collected. I'll go ahead and click on OK. And then it will roll this information up to the primary option that I'm working with. Now, the thing to remember is when, these roll-ups will actually be scheduled, so they will kind of roll the information up on roll-up fields, usually like every 12 hours or so, or at the time when the record is kind of fed into, you will also see that that information is rolled up in current based upon that information. So now I can go ahead and hit save and close. And then I've got my roll-up field, so I can go ahead and save and close on my roll-up field. And all that would be left at this point would be to add it to the form. And again, once we get all the kind of fields defined and created, then we'll go ahead, I'll add them to the form, and we'll open up a form so you can kind of see all these different options in action.